Monday. Welcome to episode 33 of our weekly CRICKETher Vodcast. The weather here in England has been a bit miserable over the last few days, lots of rain. So it's a good thing that the WBBL is being played in Australia, isn't it, Syd?
Yeah, it never rains in Sydney, does it, Raf? No, the shocking truth is that the WBBL has been a bit unprecedented, really, it feels like. I know that people in other places in Australia do complain that it always rains in Sydney, and it does seem to be that's what has been happening. We've had like 2 fully completed games out of half a dozen games this weekend. We only had like a couple of results. We've had piles of no results. Like half the matches have ended up no result. The situation we're in is that the 2 Sydney teams are at the top of the table. Sydney Thunder at the top with Heather Knight and Tony Beaumont there. And Sydney Sixers behind them. But the Melbourne Stars have had 3 games washed out, and the Melbourne Stars haven't lost a game either. So, the weather's really taking over, and to be honest, no result is really at the top of the table there at the moment.
Okay, so that's the situation with WBBL. That is a bit disappointing. The weather god's not smiling on women's cricket at the moment, but hopefully that will change over the coming few days. Now, talking of WBBL, there was actually a bit of controversy last weekend, wasn't there, ahead of the Stars Thunder game? What happened there, Syd?
Yeah, this was really bizarre, wasn't it? That this relates to Black Lives Matter and the taking the knee, and we had the Stars v the Thunder, and Heather Knight led the Thunder to take the knee at the beginning of the game. Everyone had talked about that beforehand. And the whole of the Thunder team did it. The 2 English players for the Stars, Nat Siver and Catherine Brunt, also did it. And the rest of the Stars just stood there, which was a little odd, I think you have to say. And there wasn't really a satisfactory explanation produced for that. And I think that my lawyer is currently poking me in the side, saying that that's probably all I should say about that. What's your perspective, Raf?
Yeah. All a bit strange, actually, a bit bizarre. I don't really quite know what happened. As you say, we don't really have an explanation for it. I guess it was a bit disappointing. I think, given that over the last few days, Ebony Rainford-Brent's been hitting the headlines a bit, and has actually been quite critical of the fact that over the English summer, the England men's team stopped taking the knee after their initial series against West Indies men. And didn't continue that, and basically has said that she thinks that they did that much too early, and given where cricket's come from, cricket's long history of entanglement with imperialism, with racism, that actually that's not good enough to only do that as a very short-term measure. And I completely agree with her, just to make that clear. I think that obviously it's a bit of a balancing act between, you don't want it just to become a routine thing that people do because it's something that you do and they don't really think about the meaning of it, but at the same time it seems that to just give it up after essentially one women's series, the England against the West Indies one, is very soon indeed. So yeah, I found that a bit disappointing, actually. As well as confusing and baffling. Well, there you go.
Oh, well, talking of Ebony, her ACE programme has been in the news this week as well. What's the news on that? Well, what is ACE? Perhaps you should start by telling the viewers, Raf, what's ACE all about?
Well, it started as Ebony Rainford-Brent's project at Surrey. It stands for the African Caribbean Engagement Project. And yeah, as I say, it started out at Surrey. They had black players come along into Surrey, and they did coaching sessions with them, and then they put some of the most talented ones onto their academy. And the idea behind it is to try and re-engage the African Caribbean community in England with cricket as a sport. Ebony has been kind of quite vocal about the fact that herself growing up in the 1990s in London, she didn't feel connected to cricket and she kind of fell into it by chance. And what she's trying to do is open up opportunities for the next generation of young people to really reconnect with cricket.
This is not just women's cricket, is it, Raf? This is men's cricket as well, right?
It is men's cricket as well, absolutely, yeah. So, and just to kind of finish talking about why it's been in the news this week, she's been given, I think it's about £540,000 from Sport England to officially launch ACE as a charity. So they're going to have full-time members of staff working on it, and they're going to expand it both across London and initially into Birmingham. And then she's got plans in future to also expand it into other cities. So they're making it bigger, and they're really kind of launching it in other areas. In terms of, yes, it is a men's cricket thing as well. But Ebony has also said that she thinks that there's particular issues in terms of black girls and women re-engaging them with cricket. So, for example, I think at Surrey they only had their sessions, only 17% of the people who came along were female. And then in terms of the 25 players who got put onto the Surrey Academy, only 2 out of those 25 were female. So actually there is a particular issue there. And that probably relates to things that we talked about a couple of months ago in this vodcast about the fact that there is a real problem and a specific problem. So there's a cricket problem, but there's also a specific problem with women's cricket here, in terms of it always historically in England having been a very white sport, and there being particular factors that play into that. And so hopefully Ebony's ACE programme and its expansion can really reach out into girls and women's cricket as well as into boys and men's cricket and really reconnect. I think it's a absolutely brilliant initiative, and I think that Ebony Rainford-Brent's wonderful. She's a brilliant role model for black girls and black women who want to play cricket, and it's amazing. It's really great, and we should really applaud her for what she's doing. On the flip side of that, actually, it's quite problematic that she's the one doing it in some ways, that she's having to lead that initiative from her role at Surrey. Isn't it something really that the ECB as a governing body should have been taking the initiative on years ago, but actually particularly now in the wake of all the conversations people are having about Black Lives Matter, they should be doing that. And Ebony has said in interviews that she's done this week that she's impatient with the lack of change and the lack of pace of change that's going on and the lack of action. She says people are doing a lot of talking. She's now feeling that she's got no choice other than to take action herself. And it's brilliant, and yeah, great that she's doing that, but we really kind of perhaps should expect that the ECB might be doing a bit more as well. So there's praise and criticism to be had, I think.
Okay. And what else this week, Raf?
Well, there's been another big bit of news that you wrote a piece about for CRICKETher, about Maia Bouchier, the Southern Vipers player whose bowling action has been found to be illegal. Now, your piece was quite interesting. Who's to blame for all this, Syd?
Well, I do think that that's the really important point there. That obviously, there's a degree that the player has responsibility for everything. But what really worries me about the entire thing is that Maia's been part of the England Academy for like 5 years, and nobody has intervened and corrected it well before it got to this stage. And for me, that's really very disappointing. And I feel like if there was a problem, and I think they've clearly shown that there is a problem, it really ought to have been sorted out years ago, well before it got to the stage of an umpire at a regionals match reporting her action and then her having to go for an assessment, which should have been all sorted out long ago. And I do feel there's an interesting parallel with the case of Emily Smith, which was also under discussion again this week, as she did some interviews this week, who, if we remember, is a WBBL player that got banned. She got technically got a year ban. Most of it was suspended, although effectively it wound up being a year ban because the suspended bit was all off season. Mm-hmm. And she got banned for tweeting or Instagramming or Insta tweeting or whatever the kids do a team sheet. But the similarity here is that actually it was somebody else's responsibilities, got laid off. Mm. And what happened in Emily Smith's case is that the Hobart Hurricanes should have removed her phone. Mm. They should have removed all the players' phones. The players were in a zone where they weren't supposed to have their phones, but the phones had not been removed. The system failed, and then she got kicked roundly in the face. as a result of the system failing. And I really feel that also was a little bit unfair. And you go, well, technically the players are responsible for everything, but I think the system has to take some responsibility in both of those cases. And I'm not sure that it's really doing so adequately. So I'm a little bit disappointed with the system there. And I think that the players have been let down by the system in both cases.
Yeah, interesting. I pretty much agree with you. In last week's Vodcast, we were talking about players who might be in with a chance of being awarded one of the 15 new regional contracts, and Maia Bouchier was one of the names that we mentioned. Do you think that this will affect her chances of being awarded one of those contracts?
Well, it certainly shouldn't, should it, Raf? Because again, if we're saying that the system's let her down, then the system has, a duty to sort it out, and the best way of sorting it out is to, give her the support that she needs to be able to, remodel her bowling action, and to, continue being the great prospect that she is. I said 2 years ago that I think that she will play for England one day. She's obviously, a massive talent. And let's hope the system now stands up, takes responsibility for what's happened, and works with her to make things right again, and to continue their investment in a fantastic player that hopefully will go on and play for England.
Yeah, great. Okay, well that's it from us this week. Thanks as ever for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.